You some hellos. Hi, everyone from Croatia, Minnesota, and Nebraska, New York City. Awesome. And Boston Public Schools. Well, I am just so excited to have you all here today for our webinar, Digital Citizenship Activities with Book Creator. And I'm going to kind of bounce around from going full screen with my slides to showcasing some things for you online, to making sure I can see the chat clearly as well in case you have questions. Excited to see so many folks here from Texas and North Carolina, from South Africa. I was on a call actually this morning with someone not far from Fayetteville, North Carolina. So I see that in the chat. I'm excited that you're all here today to talk about this idea of digital citizenship activities with Book Creator. So I'm going to go full screen and I'll pull in and out of this a couple times. I've got the chat area up on my screen. And please know that you also have a Q&A box in case you want to answer, or I should say, post a question right there. And John and I are here and we'll kind of answer questions as we go through. So today we're going to talk about digital citizenship activities with Book Creator. We are recording this webinar. So if you have to take care of something else during the day today, during this chunk of time that you've carved out for the webinar, or you like what you hear and you want to share it with a colleague or educator friend, this will go up on Book Creator's YouTube channel. If you haven't been on their YouTube channel before, I definitely recommend that you subscribe to it. I mean, it's free, right? You just subscribe to it and that will just give you a little notification when something new pops up, like when they upload the recordings for these. So just so you know, it'll be there for you. So welcome everyone today. You might have heard me give some shout outs to folks who are joining from all over the world in lots of different time zones today. If we haven't met before, my name is Monica Burns. I'm an ed tech and curriculum consultant. I'm a former New York City public school teacher, which some of you might have heard me mention as we were getting settled into the call. I'm a Book Creator ambassador and founder of ClassTechTips.com. So if I know I did this already, right before I jumped on with you, I took a quick video to tell everyone on Instagram that I was excited to have this webinar with you today. You are welcome to snap pictures, to post things on Twitter or whatever your favorite kind of places, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. You're also welcome to tag Book Creator and tag me. I'm Class Tech Tips, just to again give that shout out and let other people know that you are investing some time today in professional learning. So we are going to go today through a bunch of different things, and I'm really excited because this topic of digital citizenship is one for me that I've been passionate about for some time, but it's the first time I've done a webinar with Book Creator and digital citizenship on the mind. So we're definitely going to talk about digital citizenship tips and project ideas for digital citizenship. I'm going to point you out some of the remote learning resources from Book Creator. I'll give you a pretty quick overview of Book Creator too, just so I know there's folks who might be totally new to it. And that's really my first question. In that chat area, I'd love to hear a little bit from you. How familiar are you with Book Creator? Is this something totally new? You heard about it, this webinar grabbed your attention and you're joining us today. Have you used it a whole lot, but the idea of digital citizenship might be something that brought you today? Is it something you've used every once in a while? Awesome. So we've got a nice big group today on the call live with us. So some of you are totally new. Some of you have used it a few times. Some of you have used it with kids a bunch. So I love seeing and hearing all of this kind of coming through with the chat. I'm going to give you a pretty quick overview of the tool, and then we're going to go out online and I'm going to show you Book Creator live and in action today on the Chrome web browser of my MacBook. But if I move a little fast, if I am pressing buttons and you're thinking to yourself, Monica, where'd you find that? Or something like that, I do want you to know that Book Creator has lots of getting started resources, including some getting started webinars. John is hosting a whole bunch of webinars this month, along with the other folks at Book Creator. So please know that that is something you could always point back to. So if at any time I'm going a little quick or you miss something, you can always put a question in the chat area or the Q&A box. And there's plenty of getting started resources with Book Creator, but I think you'll find it pretty intuitive as we jump in together today. So just so you know, as we're recording this, right, it is April of 2020, although this is going to be recorded, of course, right? If you're with us live, you're with us here in April. We're in the middle of a public health crisis with many schools closed, many home learning environments now taking place as the primary way that students are interacting with content, right? You might be in the midst of a distance learning initiative with your school or district as well. So Book Reader has lots of remote learning resources. They have ebook resources. Now, if you haven't heard of it, Collaboration has an extended free trial as opposed to just the 14 days in the past. So that's something that you may want to check out over this spring. There's webinars, and we're going to talk a little bit about a workflow that is specific to remote learning and supporting students at home today. And you'll hear me mention that as we get started, and I'll kind of reference that too, just because it's front of mind for all of us today. So for those of you who are new to Book Creator, it's an open-ended creation tool that you can use in iOS, Chrome, or anywhere on the web. Students and teachers can create and publish books, and it's super simple. You can make interactive pages, adding voice, text, video, images, and more. I am out of the classroom right now, so I used to be a classroom teacher, but now I spend time visiting other classrooms and hosting professional development for teachers, but I've sat side by side with kids of all ages, including elementary school students, as they work through using Book Creator. It is super dynamic, and you can really use it with kids of all ages. So it's something where you might have kids sit side by side, work collaboratively on different devices, a lot of things that you can do with it. And so today you'll hear me mention, when we talk about remote learning strategies specifically, that teachers can create libraries for students, and that'll be the suggestion that we make today when we talk about putting these digital citizenship practices into action in a remote learning environment. You'll hear me come back to this. So again, open-ended tool, kids and teachers can create and publish books, super interactive, great for all ages, and teachers can create those libraries to invite students in, which is really great for remote learning environments as well. So today we're going to talk about digital citizenship activities, but I do want you to know that it's not the only thing you can do inside of Book Creator. You might have kids make portfolios or showcase poetry, create step-by-step guides, science reports, learning journals, comic books, you name it. There is just so much kids can do. And so when we talk about Book Creator outside of the classroom, which is kind of my way of describing remote learning, distance learning, online learning, a lot of words that mean different things but are being used interchangeably right now. So we are going to talk about first how to set up a teacher account, how to share in that login protocol with families, and how you might check in on student books. So this is going to be the protocol we'll talk about that supports this outside of the classroom or distance remote learning. And so you'll hear me reference it as we go through the digital citizenship activities today. But something that's really important that I try to mention as much as I possibly can, including here on these webinars, really want to keep in mind access and the priorities of the students and families you're working with during this time. So you will want to think a bit about how you're positioning this resource. Is this something that you are supporting families with that kids already used before and they can do on their own? Is it something that you're providing as a recommendation or a value add for families looking for other activities? So you might decide that you're sharing activities, you have some expectations, right? What that looks like. But we know that families in the midst of this public health crisis are dealing with health and economic challenges. So of course we want to make sure, we're keeping this in mind. These are all things that I know you already know, of course, right? But I want to come out in front and acknowledge these pieces so that you know that I'm on the same page as you as well. So when we talk about this idea of setting up kids for success, the biggest part is getting a library set up as a teacher and then inviting students in. So this is the page that I'm going to point you to a couple times today. I'm going to go out to the web and show you this in just a moment. But if you are on a device today, especially a computer where you might have a couple different screens going, I encourage you to head to app.bookcreator.com and play around as I am playing around together with you today. So if you are at app.bookcreator.com, this is what you'll see. it's going to prompt kids to sign in first, which is great. It makes it super easy for kids to know exactly where to go. They can sign in with Google, Office 365, Clever integrations, or even with the QR code. But in order for them to sign in, you've got to get in first. And that means that you would have already had to have created your own account, because when you create an account, you then create a library, and that's where kids go. So you would sign in, right? Teacher sign in. You would then create a library, and then you would get that blue button, right? That invite code, and you would get a code to give to kids. Then they sign in, they put in the code that you've given them, and they're ready to go to make books. So in a classroom environment, you would still follow the same procedure, but you just want to make sure that this is really clear to families when you're sharing this tool. So you're sharing the link, hey, this is how you sign in, go to app.bookcreator.com, and then you are sharing the code that you will get when you create a library. So I'm just going to share this with you real quick so that you can see me set up a library, and then we'll get in there and start making some things related to this idea of digital citizenship. So I am on my Chrome web browser, app.bookcreator.com, and I'm already logged in. So I went through that login page. I signed in with Google single sign-on. Now I've got a whole bunch of libraries because I use Book Creator a lot, a whole bunch. So I'm going to go down here and create a new library. If you are signing in for the first time, you might see a couple different screens pop up first. That'll just kind of onboard you and give you some information and get you set up. But for us for today, I'm just going to say this is my April 2020 library. Anyone I am going to kind of put in here. So can you just give me a thumbs up because I saw in the chat. Can you see my Book Creator screen here? Let me see here. I'm going to just let me see if I minimize this. Okay, now can you see it? Let's see. Okay, you know what? I shared just the screen, so I'm going to come back up here and share my desktop. And let's see. Okay, can you see my Book Creator screen now? If I just kind of get a thumbs up there that you can see it. Awesome. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Cami and Emma. Thank you for that. So here I am inside of Book Creator. So I already did that login that you might have seen me, right? Seen with the screenshots. I'm already logged in at app.bookcreator.com. As I was saying, I've got lots and lots of libraries here, but I'm going to create a new library. So I'm just going to make one for April 2020. As I was mentioning before, you might not see this screen if it's your first time getting in. You might see a couple questions that help you get set up first. Now I can allow kids to do Google image search. I can allow them to edit their own books. If I'm doing this in a remote learning environment, I may decide to turn off the fact that kids can see each other's books just because I want them to kind of work independently, or maybe not feel like they can't do something before, right? So just something to think about. You could always change that later. I'm going to create the new library. I'm going to jump into my April 2020, and this is where I get the invite code. So I would give this code to kids along with the instruction to head over to app.bookcreator.com and sign in whichever way made sense with them. So I'm going to come back to this in a little bit when we start talking about our activities, right, for digital citizenship. And that way, you'll see me make some books in this space. So let's keep going. You are welcome to try this out right as I'm talking with you today. So I encourage you, this is a great time to head over to app.bookcreator.com and to make sure that you're able to sign in. So if that's something you want to do, go ahead and check it out because I'll point out some things as we go along. So there are lots and lots of books and activities ready for you from the folks at Book Creator. We are going to talk about digital citizenship projects today, but please know that these are out there and available too, and I'll point them to you as well. So you're going to have kids join a library. When they come in, you would be the one who decides what kind of activity you're going to give them or what kind of freedom you're going to give them to create within this space. So there are resources already on Book Creator's website around digital citizenship, and I would encourage you, if you haven't checked out Book Creator's blog or gotten on their newsletter, it's a great thing to do to stay up to date. Now, Dr. Beth Holland, she has a great article all about the 6 C's of education that include some big ideas and connection to Michael Fullen's work all around citizenship and being a good digital citizenship. So this citizen. So this is a great resource to point to if you're looking for some research, if you're looking to make a case for the importance of digital citizenship in the classroom. If you are familiar with ISTE and the ISTE standards, what they have set up for students and coaches and teachers and school leaders, you can also find some information about ISTE's digital citizenship support and some of the things that they suggest you keep in mind when talking about what it means to be a good digital citizen. So if digital citizenship is a newer term to you or you're exploring it for the first time, this is also a great place to go to for some ideas and inspiration. I love that they have a nice bulleted list, those 4 pieces right there that can give you some guidance of what it looks like when you're using technology in a way that is friendly for your school community and the wider community, as well as some of the pieces that come into the play here, especially with navigating online spaces. Today, though, we're going to talk a little bit about some different kind of core areas and how you can create some projects that address them. And I'm going to point you towards the commonsense.org, Common Sense Education's website. They have a lot of digital citizenship curriculum, lots of ideas, totally free, K-12 friendly. So if you are looking for lessons to root some of the activities that we'll talk about today in, this is a really great place to go to with free easy to access resources. And so I'm going to mention some of the categories that they have more lessons for and more different pieces for that you may want to go into a little bit deeper as we talk about today. We're going to look at project ideas that definitely connect to these big ideas and best practices that you'll see shared in more thorough pieces of curriculum. So you can think about what we're talking about today as a supplement for something that's going to be a little bit more robust. So the first area that we're going to talk about and look at some types of projects students might participate in has to do with media balance and well-being. So what does it look like when kids are using media, right, as a consumer and making sure that it's not something that is so overwhelming, all right, in terms of the rate of consumption or the type of things that they're consuming. So some activities that you might do inside of Book Creator, and I'll take you out and we'll create one together, is to have students review the types of media that they consume over the course of a day or over the course of a week. You might have conversations with them about what counts when describing how they use different types or interact with different types of media. So what does it mean here when we talk about watching a YouTube video versus a Netflix film or documentary or spending 20 minutes watching TikTok videos, right? All of that counts when we talk about media consumption. You might decide on a structure for helping kids keep a log of their media use. And you may want this to be something where students are reflecting on the ways they use technology during the day. So this doesn't have to be a good way or a bad way type of conversation, as much as an opportunity for kids to really realize how much media or what type of media they're consuming, reflect on the balance of different types, and they can do this by creating a log of what they have consumed over the course of the week. So this is a page right within Book Creator where you might decide that kids are going to record their voice talking about the type of media they consume over the course of a week. You might ask them to write something like adding text underneath each one, right? Or format so that they have a book of their media log and they have a page for each day. So lots of different ways you could do this. What's great about Book Creator is it is an open-ended creation tool and there isn't just one way to use it. So I want to take you out and show you what this would look like from a creation standpoint here in Book Creator. So I'm going to go to New Book right up here at the top of my screen, and I'm going to create a book that we could use for a media log. Now, all of these are wonderful. There's the comic options down here at the bottom. I typically use landscape when I'm sharing things, especially on a webinar, because it fills up the whole screen and it's a little bit easier for everyone to see. Now, I might make a cover for a book if I was going to do a page for each one, but for today, we'll just show you what it looks like if you're going to do one page. So kids can go ahead and choose the inspector button, and this is going to allow them to choose a background. There's all different kinds of paper options, all different options to choose from. There's pencils and borders, so lots of things. If you haven't been in Book Creator recently, I definitely encourage you to take a peek. So I just had my blank page and I went to inspector to add this. Then I can go ahead and add text. So if this is going to be my media log for April, and I can go ahead and hit done. I'm going to hit the inspector button here, and now I want this to be a little bit bigger. I'm going to go ahead maybe and make this bold, and then I can change the font. So anytime anything is highlighted with blue around it, it means I can get in here and make some changes when I hit the inspector button. So maybe I'll make this blue to match the page there. Yeah, let's go with this one, put it right here. Now, the way that I did it in the example I just shared is I had like a little box for each day of the week, right? So if this is going to be my media log for the week of, say, April 13th, I'll put in here just my parentheses. I can add that, stretch it out, and place it right here in the middle. I might use the shape tool. So I can go to shapes and I might make a shape for each day of the week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or something like that. So I'm going to actually use the circle for this one. This pink is nice, but I'm going to go to the inspector and change the color, maybe something a little lighter to go with my theme here. And if this is going to be for the different days of the week, I'm going to want 5 of these. So I might make it a little bit bigger, place it here, and now I'm just going to go to copy and then paste. So they're all going to be the same size. You'll see that there's those guidelines that help me plop it into place. So they're all kind of matched up together. Go to paste here. Let's see, can I sneak that one in here? Oh, good. Using my estimation to make sure I could fit all of these here. So there we go. And then I can come back up here to my text, and maybe I'm just going to put in Monday, place this down here, and then I might also go to my inspector, change some of this up a bit, maybe change the color here, maybe make this bold or a little bit bigger for each one. And I'm not going to take you through labeling all of these, but you kind of get where I'm headed here with my Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Now, when students put in their media log for the day, right, you might give them a prompt and you might say, "Well, I'd love for you to record the different types of media that you interacted with over the day, or how much time you spent in one particular area." This doesn't have to be something that's evaluative as much as something that you are just giving kids an opportunity to reflect or prompt further discussion. So you might have kids use the text tool, so they could hit text. If you haven't tried it out before, there's voice to text built into Book Creator. So kids could write something or say something and it will type it for them. So let's try it out. Today I watched a documentary on Netflix. Pretty good, right? So I could put that there. So you might have kids put in text for these, right? Or you might have them use the recording button. They can start recording their voice this way. This morning, I spent 15 minutes watching TikTok videos. So I'm going to use this recording, and then I could place it here if this was my Tuesday reflection. So the idea here is that when we're thinking about media well-being and the balance of different types of media that we interact with, you can decide what this looks like when it comes to the structure as well. So if you are typing in a different language, so I saw a question come in about that. So if you want students to type or record in a different language, you'd want to have the keyboard kind of set up on your device. When you do go into play mode here, and you go to read to me, you can change the settings as well so that the voice speaks out the language that you were typing in. So that's just something to consider. And if you have a real specific question on a particular kind of language integration, just let me know about that too, and we can double check. But that would be my kind of big answer when it comes to putting things in. But of course, you could always do voice recording in whatever language you want, or even put this so that you have it in 2 different languages, especially if you're working with different groups of kids as well. So this is one option for a media log. This would address this idea of setting up kids for success as you're talking about media balance and well-being. Another area that you may want to explore when talking about digital citizenship with kids is privacy and security. So you might have kids do a project where they interview an expert that can give students ideas for how to be safe online. You might have them create a book, and this might be something that they create 1 or 2 pages from each student that combines different types of media, giving a particular tip. You might ask them to do some research about specific use cases of times where folks maybe were not being as safe online, or there were security issues. And you might even have students make a book and then swap that book or share it. They can publish it online and share that with a partner class. So what might this look like? Well, you might have kids create a collaborative book of class tips. This is a way that they can maybe each have their own thing, make their own page inside a book, and then they're able to have one class book. So if you were going to make a class book of digital citizenship tips, you may want to set up a particular structure or have kids create something that looks a certain way. But what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to pop out and kind of start from scratch for this one again. So this is our one with our media log, but I'm going to go to new book here. I'm going to create a landscape, and I'm going to make a quick cover for this one with our class tips, and then I'll show you how you might have kids collaborate in here. So I'm going to go to the inspector button. I'm going to choose a background. I love these comic backgrounds that you can use on the page. I'm going to add some text here, and I'm going to say our book of class tips for staying safe online. I'm going to plug that in here. I'm going to go to my inspector. I want to color in the background so it's easy to read. I'm going to make this text much bigger and center it. I saw someone mention about this tool being great to support students with dyslexia and English language learners. There's actually Open Dyslexic text as a font built in. You can see it kind of weights down the letters. It's not going to be magic, but it may be helpful for students with dyslexia. So something to think about there. It's a great best practice to have in your classroom too, in case your students or your audience that they might be working with would appreciate this kind of text too. So I'm going to also add an image by going to plus sign, import. I could choose a picture from my own computer, but even if I just put something like laptop here, it's going to do a Google, image search for me. I can see where these all come from when I click on them. Let's go ahead and choose this one here, and I'm going to hit select. And this will place it right here on the page. So remember, this is my cover for a book. That's my idea here, is what I'm doing here, right, is making a cover for this book, because I now want to turn on collaboration and let kids come in and create a page for this book. So this is just taking a moment to load here, but you can see what's going on with adding my pictures. I'm going to go back here to my books, and here's the book I just made. If I want to, right, I can go ahead, you'll see these buttons down here at the bottom. I can go to collaborate. And what this is going to do is it's going to mean that everyone in this library is going to have access to work on this book at the same time. So if we were doing a collaborative book all about class tips for digital citizenship, or kids sharing one case study that they researched, I could turn on collaboration. And that means that any kid who has this code that has access to this library, remember, I give them that code when they sign up for Book Creator so they can pop into my library and make their own book. Now, this could be one where anyone in my group could open up the book, create their own page and give a tip. And so then when I come up here to pages, I'll be able to see Monica's page and John's page and Yolanda's page and Alyssa's page and Susanna's page, right? And everyone would have their own page and they could contribute to this book. So being in a collaborative space is not just great for a class project, like a book of tips, but it's also a really important part of thinking about being a good digital citizen and practicing digital citizenship skills as well. They'll be able to see whichever books I've turned on for collaboration, which you can see right here. I saw a question come through about this from Emma. Any book I've turned on for collaboration, they'll be able to see that book and collaborate in that book. If I've gone in my settings here and said that kids can read other people's books, then they'll be able to see other books in that library too. But unless it has this little icon, they won't be able to get in there and make any changes. So definitely useful. I have to tell you, and I had a text message come through from a teacher, the smart teacher friend this morning in Florida, and she was asking me about collaboration. She had asked a question and then she figured it out because it's right here on the screen. And so it's super useful. I've used it with kids too, and with adults. It's pretty fantastic. A really great way to practice digital citizenship skills too. Let's keep going down the list. Another thing to consider when we talk about digital citizenship activities is digital footprint and identity. So you might ask students to list their core values, like what's important to them and how they want the world to view them. This is a big part about saying, what is my identity? What is it online that I want other people to kind of think and feel about me? Then you might also have students identify places where they currently post online, like when they do upload that TikTok video, or they do use someone's phone to add something to Instagram or to comment on a basketball player or favorite celebrities, right? Instagram posts, like they're in that place, right? So having them think a little bit about where they show up online is really important. You might also have conversations with kids about their career goals. What is it that they want to do at some point, and what kind of things are they doing online that could help or hurt that for them? And so something to consider. A fictional story, you might have kids write an imagined narrative that illustrates the consequences of someone's decision when they post something that's not so nice online. And so this is all part of creating an opportunity for kids to think deeply about what it means to be a good digital citizen, what's important to them, how they want to show up online, right? All of this kind of comes into the equation. So definitely something to think about. There's a lot of ways that you could use this type of activity. So one thing you might want to do, and I'll take you out and show you this in a moment, is do a who am I online type of project. So when students are reflecting on who they are or who they want to be, they can think of the words that describe them. And so you see here in this example, I am kind when I comment on a friend's work. I am thoughtful when I decide what to post and share. I am careful and ask my family before I download a new app. So this is something you could absolutely do as a comic, right, book, especially if you're recreating a scene or a moment where someone has to make like a tough decision, and what do they do in that moment, right? So totally great for comics. And you might have someone do kind of a profile of who they want to be, especially if you're working with kids who might not post in an online format like the way a high school student might. Maybe you have kids who are posting in Seesaw and commenting on each other's work, right? That counts when we talk about being in an online space and contributing. So for this type of project, you can see here, I'm going to jump back into this logbook and just go ahead and make a new page to show you what this might look like. You might have kids go to the plus sign. They could use the import button to add a picture. In that example, you see just a clip art picture, but they could also use the camera. You can see behind me for real, right? Not my Zoom background, but I could take a picture or selfie here. I'm not going to do a double take there or an extra one. Doesn't have to be picture perfect for us for today, but you get the feel, right? You might have kids take a picture of themselves. Then they can go ahead and add text, and they can add some of the things that they want to be online. So maybe it's something like they want to make sure that they are always thoughtful with their comments. They're someone who always adds a friendly emoji after they share something to let someone know that they're there to be helpful, right? So all things you might have kids do. Now, in this example here, you see that there's the different pieces of text, just a sentence for each one. You might have kids put in talk bubbles. You might have them put in thought bubbles. We'll take this one over here, grab the green, right? So there's no one way to do it. There's a couple of different ways that you might have kids create something like this too. So we'll keep moving down the list with some of our ideas. But before we do, I'd love to hear from you. How are you incorporating digital citizenship into your instruction? Or if you haven't quite done it yet, what jumps out from you as some of the activities we've looked at so far? So is there anything that you want to share about how you already incorporate digital citizenship into your instruction? Or are you getting some ideas right now? And is there something that jumped out at you? And I'll give some shout outs as I see them here come across the screen. Totally agree, Jill. Having kids create something together is a really great way to put these practices into action. And if you get a little bit of that like, oh no, classroom management scare that I know we all get sometimes, right? Of like, what's if something goes wrong here? I would much rather have kids make a mistake when it comes to maybe not being as nice as they could be online, right? With me, all right, as opposed to making a bigger mistake in the real outside online world where they can't kind of come back from it that much. Great. Yeah. So I love how the comic idea is jumping out at you. You can use some of the clip art. Using something like Flipgrid, I saw someone mention, Yolanda mentioned that. So if you use Flipgrid, you could actually have kids bring the Flipgrid video into Book Creator too. So if you are here, I took my own little picture there, but I could go to import and I could embed a Flipgrid video if I have an embed code, or I could upload the file if I saved it to Driver Files. Same thing goes with Scratch Junior, Michelle. So if you have kids take a screenshot, then they could upload it as a file or add it if it's saved in their drive. So lots of ways to put all of that into action. Let's keep going with a few more ideas here. And if you have more questions, you can keep plugging them into the Q&A box or put them into the chat. We'll make sure to leave some time at the end today for more questions as well. But if you are thinking about some other areas of digital citizenship, and remember some of these big ideas, right, connect back to the common sense media curriculum if you want to dive in and look for lesson ideas there. But another area is relationships and communication. So you might ask students to role play, leaving comments on a sample piece of work. You might have them use the recording tool to have students record themselves reading comments with a different tone so that they can hear what it might sound like if someone's being sarcastic or someone's being serious or being funny, right? All of those pieces come into play. And of course, you can have students think about the words that they might use in a comment. You might give them some examples and have them think about choosing words carefully. And of course, they can also share a story where maybe they misinterpreted something. We've all been in that situation where we're kind of do a double take when we get a text message or an email that sounds a little bit off, but then we want to give that person the benefit of the doubt that maybe they didn't quite mean it that way, right? So students might have a story that they want to share about a time when they could have been more thoughtful about their communication too. So all of that would count. So if you are looking to do a project that kind of goes hand in hand with that idea, here we go, the right one there, we'll get to the next one in a moment. You might give students an example comment like, I think there are lots of ways you could fix your project, and then have them record it with 3 different tones, right? I think there are a lot of ways you could fix this project would be very different than the, I think there's a lot of ways you could fix your project, right? Which might give you the idea that that person could help out or give you some ideas. So you might have students think of a comment that might be misinterpreted in a couple different ways. Or you might have them use one, like pick it out of a hat. If you've written, 10 of them and have kids pick them out of a hat and decide which one they're going to do. They could record their voice saying it in a couple different ways. And then they could talk a little bit about how they could be a little bit more clear, like saying something like, I think there are a lot of ways you could fix your project, but I can't wait to tell you my best idea for you, or I loved what you have so far. I think there are a lot of ways you could fix your project to help connect with your audience, right? So talking to them about all of these things can really connect to your big ideas for relationships. When it comes to digital citizenship, this of course is something that you could do collaboratively in a shared book, or you might have students just create a page and then use it in a shared environment as well. So definitely something you could tailor to your group of students. Now, the next area has to do with cyberbullying and digital drama and hate speech, all those things that can be very overwhelming for students when we talk about things that may go wrong, if you will, right, in a social space. So you might have students review the qualities of an upstander, someone who stands up when they see something that's not so great happening. You can talk to them about the difference between a bystander who just sees all the things happening that aren't great and an upstander who does something about it. And so you might even make connections to characters in a book or someone in the real world, right? So really you could make some strong connections here to create this as an ELA or social studies activity that you look at. And you might have students make their own stories where they describe the important role of an upstander in a tough situation. This is something that you could make personal if you want to, but sometimes that can be a little bit overwhelming when students are reflecting on things that might have happened in the past. You might feel better with them having them tell a make-believe story about an upstander so that they're not hung up too much on this as well. So let's go ahead to the next one. Here's the idea for the project. You might have students create an upstander profile and talk a little bit about what someone does when something happens. So they might imagine a scenario like, when this happens, this is what an upstander does. Now here you can see you have the option to add text, of course, but kids might record their voice to this too. They might create a video and embed the video in here and talk a little bit about it. So you could really make it your own when it comes to this sort of project. And you might even connect it to a book or something else that kids are reading or working on. Now, the last one on our list is news and media literacy, which is a really important part of digital citizenship. A lot of times we think about being safe online or not saying the wrong thing online, but the opportunity for kids to examine and evaluate text that they come across, articles, videos, evaluate sources is really important. So this could combine high quality and low quality resources where you get kids an opportunity to look and review at different things. You might have them annotate a screenshot of a resource they found online and talk a little bit about it. You might have students create a checklist that they can use to say, I can tell this is a good quality source, or I'm not so sure about the authority of this person telling me this thing, right? So you might have some student created videos embedded on a page as well, and really give them an opportunity to take some ownership and have some leadership in saying, I know this is a really good source for all of these reasons. And I'm saying this in a broad way, but you would have different parameters or expectations that for different groups of students, right? Depending on the kind of digital citizenship lessons you've worked with them on. So you might have them do a source review, what I found, where it came from, why I can trust it, and they might do this or even incorporate it into a traditional bibliography, right, or annotated works cited, totally up to you. So I'd love to hear a little bit from you about which projects really grabbed your attention. You had a chance to watch me, right, try out a couple of these and bring them onto your screen. But is there any project ideas that grabbed your attention, or maybe one of them isn't quite the right fit for your group, but it made you think of something else that I didn't mention? Because I'd love to give some shout outs. And this is also a great time, if you have any questions, to post them into the chat area or the Q&A area. Yeah, so this is great for middle school. Definitely the upstander idea is one that you could tailor to a lot of different situations. What I would suggest is, if you have had significant bullying instances with your kids, you may want to connect this to a book or a reading passage, so it doesn't get too personal within your group. So that's something that you might want to think about as well. yeah, you could have kids use the recording feature, and that's great for thinking about tone and making sure that their messages are interpreted in a way that's going to be appropriate. And yeah, this could definitely lend itself for book clubs when you're making connections to things as well. So these are all pieces that you can integrate into a content area specific type of project too. So you might really be thinking about the rock cycle and having kids make books about the rock cycle, but you fold in some of these digital citizenship pieces as well by having them evaluate sources for their research or work together on different pages. So awesome. I love all of these pieces coming in. I do want to make sure that you know that you can access Book Creators Facebook group and their free newsletter, as well as their support page straight from Book Creators website. That's the best place to go if you are looking for some ideas, you want some quick information. I'm a member of the Book Creator Teachers Facebook group, and I find it super duper useful. So you'll want to check out and think about that too. If I'm back here in Book Creator, I go to My Books and then My Library. You can see in the resources section all sorts of things, including all of these books, as well as a link right there to the Facebook group and more info on webinars and things I have coming up. So I know I addressed a couple of different questions that came through as we were going through today, but if you have more, you're always welcome to reach out to me, to John, or the folks at Book Creator. I know that my DMs, my direct messages for Instagram and Twitter are often full of questions and requests for resources, so always happy to connect there. And I have 2 more webinars for the folks at Book Creator in April and then 2 in May, all on Wednesdays. So if you are around next week and you want to talk about reading responses in Book Creator with me, that's something that you can kind of reach out and connect with that way. But just a huge thank you for showing up today, for diving into all of these pieces, for navigating these spaces and prepping them all for your students. I really appreciate you taking that time out for connecting with me today. And I know a question just came in about certificate of completion and some other pieces. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to John, who will help answer some of those logistical pieces, but I'll stay on the line for you here as well.
Great. Thank you, Monica. Yeah, let me share my screen here real quick. In terms of certificate of completion, let's see here. Make sure I go to the right place. Oh, I got to wait for that Zoom button to get out of the way here. Hang on a second. Move, Zoom button, move. Uh-oh. Hang on one second. Let's do this. Move this out of the way here. All right. So now that I got that back, we do have a library that I am going to invite everybody to join as soon as I find it. There it is. So certificate of attendance. So somebody made a book in my library. Please do not do that when you guys get this. But I'm going to invite you to this library. So I will put the code into the chat window. This code will get you into, again, our library of certificates. And so what you're going to do is once you get into, there's a lot of people that made, oh my, I'm going to have to clean this up. Do not make a new book in my library, please. All right. When you get into this library, this one says using emojis. So what I'm going to do, actually, this is a good lesson here too, quickly. I'm going to copy this book and I'm going to put it into our webinar certificate library. And this one is not using emojis. This was digital citizenship. Monica, what was the full title? Digital Citizenship with Book Creator?
Yeah, let me pull it up so I get it right for you here. Digital Citizenship Activities with Book Creator.
Activities with Book Creator. Okay, cool. So what you're going to do is you're going to go into this library and you are going to copy the book. All right, so very similar to what I just did. So when you go into the library, you're going to click on the icon at the bottom that says copy, and you're going, or on the book icon, and you're going to say copy, and you're going to choose a library to put it into. So you're going to put it into one of your libraries. Once you do that, you'll be able to edit this, put a selfie in there, put your name on there, put a date, and then you can print it out as a PDF, or you can screenshot it and send it off to whatever administrator you may need to send it off to. But that is what we have for in terms of a certificate of achievement. So hopefully you'll be able to use that and that'll work for you. So there you go, Kim. Hopefully that answered your question for you. All right. And I think, were there any other questions that I might have missed? I think that might have been it. Cool. And again, that code is right there in the chat window. I'll put it in there one more time. Oh, yeah. So I didn't realize you could join a library as a teacher. Yes, absolutely. So you can join libraries all the time. I